I guess it's appropriate that I introduce him because, as he said to me before the service started, he said, "You know, this is your fault." And I'm glad to take credit for it. Sherman Haggerty was born in New Jersey, but he could only take being a Yankee for so long. And he started moving out west. He did college work at the Claremont College in Southern California, got his master's degree there, was an executive with Lennar Homes. We were cohabitants in, well, that means living together, doesn't it? We lived in Houston at the same time, I think. And I got acquainted with him a few weeks ago when a few friends got together for some pizza. And I began asking him some questions. And the more he answered, the more impressed I was. And I said, I would like for our people to hear you on a Wednesday afternoon. So I will take the credit for this. In addition to working in the housing industry, he's been with Volunteers of America since 2000, so he's been with them for 22 years. And he has a wonderful message, and he's also the author of a book that I hope he talks about. And maybe one of the best things he's got for him, our own Rita is married to him. So it's all yours, Sherman.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today and to speak with all of you. This topic, which is basically an expose of the homeless crisis, is probably not the kind of topic that normally is brought to Foothill seniors. But in my mind, it has biblical roots. Jesus was very clear in his message for us to tend to the poor and disenfranchised. And based on my view, over the last 10 years, when it comes to the homeless population, as a community, we're moving away from that responsibility, not moving toward it. And it's very, very sad for me to watch. I need to put on my glasses to see my notes. So I'm going to give you a pretty quick history. I'm going to try to do in 25 minutes what I really should spend 3 or 4 hours presenting. But I think I can give you a pretty good overview of what has transpired, at least in the last 8 to 10 years, that has changed the direction of homeless services, and from my mind and from the numbers, really not for the better. Thanks for the book plug, Comer. I didn't bring any books. I'm not selling any books, but if you're interested in more detail on this topic, I did write a book. It's called Hope Disappearing. You can find it on Amazon under my name or under the book title, and it does give a very, very detailed look at all the things that have transpired with homeless services over the last 8 to 10 years, and some ideas about how we can get back on track. A little bit about my background. Comer gave you some of the information. I moved here in 1994 as a division president for a national home building company. I was first introduced to homeless services through my employer by doing community service work, and through that process I met Volunteers of America. Did quite a few community projects for Volunteers of America between 2000 and 2005. And in 2005, they asked me to sit on their board. I served on their board from 2005 to 2013, and then I decided to step down because I really couldn't offer much more in that position. But while I was on the board, I attended several graduations at one of their programs, Mather Community Campus, which was an employment to housing program that targeted exiting people permanently from homelessness. It was a program that was begun in 1998 by Sacramento County. Volunteers of America became the principal service provider in the early 2000s. It won 2 presidential awards in 2003 and 2017. And somehow I became employed as the new director of Mather campus in January of 2014. I was asked how long of a commitment I could make. I told them I would commit for 2 years. I'm in the 8th year of my 2-year commitment to Volunteers in America, but it's been a really incredible ride. Anyway, we had a run of excellence in that program from 2014 to 2017. And I have a short video that I want to show you that'll give you some insight into the work that we did at Mather and kind of set the stage for the rest of this presentation. So if we could show that video.
Didn't know what my next step was going to be except for to go sell that next bag.
You just say screw it and start committing crimes, and it's sad.
I was using for 47 years.
Shiesty situations and people and places and not really safe. And there was always drugs involved.
Not having a job, I did a lot of things I wasn't supposed to be doing. I am a drug addict. I'm currently in recovery. I'll have 9 months next month.
Hi, I'm Annabelle. I came from BOA Detox.
And I came from St. John's. I'm Sherry, and I came from Women's Empowerment.
Hi, Royanna. Welcome to Mather.
Diana.
Hi, Diana. Michelle. Sherman. Well, welcome to Mather. My title is Director of Mather Community Campus. One thing I already know about you is that you have done a substantial amount of work to get to this point. I can tell you that your opportunities are many. You have heard from quite a few people in our organization already, so you know this is an employment program. And our ultimate objective is to get you into permanent housing with a job. Sometimes it's alcohol and drugs, sometimes it's coming out of the criminal system, or sometimes it's just a tragic event in their life that has caused homelessness.
I don't want to go back on the street, and this is the only opportunity I have in a program like this to get my life together.
This is huge. This is a big stepping stone right here. And I'm really looking forward to completing this program and moving on.
Well, my name is Jessica Lopez. I've been here for 3 weeks. When I first got here, I was a little bit overwhelmed because I've never had a daily routine like I do now. I have appointments and classes and work and community hours and meetings, and so I have a pretty good schedule going on.
I noticed each one of you were ready to go in advance.
I go to classes from 8 to 4, then from 5 to 6 I go to an AA meeting, and then from 6 to 7 I meet with my sponsor.
When I got out to Mather, it was like a whole new world. It just changed my life. It was amazing. They had so many opportunities, and all the people there cared about you so much. They just wanted to help you. It was all about getting you a job, getting you housing, making sure you're self-sufficient, and getting you out there on your own. And it was like a parent teaching their child to grow, you know?
There are people that can help them get their GED or their high school diploma. We have people that can help them with their credit. We have people that can help them with occupational development. We have people that can help them with housing. We have employment specialists out here. But everybody that shows up here has had to work really hard to get to this point. They've had to take some very important steps in the right direction to be able to come to Volunteers of America Mather.
I lived all my life out on the street, you know, and I've been an addict and alcoholic all my life. My dad was an alcoholic. I grew up, and my mom, they both did drugs. My daughter's dad went to prison because he was selling drugs. And so I ended up raising her on my own, and then just started partying from there. So I ended up drinking and doing drugs for over 10 years. I liked it. I liked to get drunk. I liked to do drugs. I just got to the point where I looked in the mirror one day and I didn't like what I seen. People were starting not to like me because I wasn't a good person. But today, now people like me. You know, I like myself. I love people. I care about people. I care about life. Well, my day starts, I wake up and I thank God for waking up. And I go down and I have me some breakfast and coffee. I come back up and then I'll sit here and study. I've been studying. I have a little over a year clean now. And this program right here, it is putting me through training to be a smog technician. Doing a lot of writing and reading, and this is my third time taking this test. I go to the One Stop and I get on the computer and I go online on the smog and I study the modules and take little pre-tests on there. It's a very hard test. They help you get your resume done. They help you know how to do interviews and help you find a job. You know, and I get anxiety when it comes to interviewing. I start crying.
I'm full of anxiety.
I am. I'm going down.
It's okay. It's okay to cry.
Not out there, it's not.
So let's work through that before you go in there.
All right.
Understand all the different job talks. So Fulton Avenue would probably be closest to you in my head.
My name's Amy.
I'm Melissa.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. What type of job are you looking for?
Customer service.
Okay. Lots of customer service jobs right now.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine, how are you? I'm a quick learner.
Okay.
I'm teachable. I'm a quick learner.
Okay.
I mean, you show me once and I can get it down.
Here. Let me take a quick look at it.
I'm so grateful for Volunteers of America. There's not enough words to put how grateful I am. There's really not. This is the first time I've ever lived a normal life, clean and sober. And I love it. It's amazing.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pains, we all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know that there is always tomorrow. Lean on me, here we go! When you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Just call on your brother when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me. When you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. For it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. All you guys.
So that video gets to me every time. I don't know why, but just so you know, someone might look at that video and say, well, that's a little extravagant to have that kind of resources dedicated to homelessness. It costs us about $30,000 to put a person through that program in 1 year and turn them into a taxpayer, rent payer in the community. And by comparison, Sacramento County today is spending over $100,000 per homeless person just for the services necessary to manage that population as best they can. But that program's gone, was defunded as part of a move from HUD that I'll explain. From 2014 to 2017 at Mather, we served 1,200 homeless men, women, and children. 70% of the adults left with jobs and housing. Independent research confirmed the recidivism rate for people completing the program was less than 5% per year for 15 years in a row. By far the most efficient program in the county. And that program and most other programs were funded by HUD at that time. And if we can go to the to this next slide, I'll explain a little bit about the system of care that was in place when I became director at Mather Community Campus. So this represents obviously the homeless people. And at the time, a homeless individual could enter in directly into county and privately funded services. These four main categories, shelters, family shelters, alcohol and drug recovery, and mental health, actually represented about 60 service providers that were providing services in the region to the homeless population. We were dealing with about 2,500 homeless people in the community at the time. All of these service providers referred to each other when necessary. So someone came into a shelter that needed alcohol and drug, they could be referred directly there. If they needed mental health, they could be referred directly there. But eventually, the idea for everybody was to get them ready to come to Mather Transitional Housing Program for the opportunity to exit homelessness with employment and housing. So we always had a 300-person waiting list for people who were waiting to get in. And the thing about Mather that a lot of people don't realize, when we ended homelessness for an individual, oftentimes we cut off generational homelessness that had been families for decades. So it not only took people out today, it also prevented lots of people from entering homeless before because they were reunited with children. Had they not had that opportunity, those children probably would have ended up the same as you saw with that woman in the video. But if we could go to the next slide. So there's actually 3 slides, and I'm going to go through these kind of quickly. The first slide, in 2015, HUD announced they were going to change their homeless funding pattern. And I was actually at a conference for the National Alliance to End Homelessness in Washington, D.C. in 2015 when the number 2 man of HUD, Housing and Urban Development, got up and said, you know, we're spending $1.5 billion a year on homelessness in the United States. $500 million of that goes to services. We're a housing agency. We think if we take that $500 million and we eliminate paying for services and put it into housing, it'll do more to end homelessness than the money we're spending on services right now. So he told the service providers in the room from all over the country, you need to go find someplace else to find that $500 million. And we're no longer going to fund transitional housing. Well, there was no place to go in 2 years, because that's how long they gave us to find $500 million to replace those kind of services. So Mather went away. Other transitional housing programs in the United States went away. A lot of the publicly funded alcohol and drug recovery beds disappeared. So we actually have like 4 times as many people that need it today, and half the beds to treat those people, to treat mental health. Let's go to the next slide. So HUD mandated a new system of homeless care that they would fund. They called it Housing First. And I will try to explain a little bit about Housing First. But first, Sac County brought in a new agency, Sacramento Steps Forward, to organize and manage this new Housing First system. HUD mandated that every city have what they called a coordinated entry program, which prevented people from directly going into services, and created this hub that was going to be managed by Sacramento Step Forward to meter people out, which I'll explain a little further. And part of this program was to register all the homeless people and give them a vulnerability indexing test. We can go to the next slide. So Housing First basically says we're going to take people directly off the street and we're going to put them in their permanent housing, and then we're going to give them case management and hope that they can stay there. And we're going to, through coordinated entry, because we don't believe you're serving the most vulnerable in your communities, we're going to take the most vulnerable population, the people who've been homeless the longest, who have the most barriers like alcohol and drug addiction and mental health, and we're going to put them in the housing first. We're going to pay their security deposit, we're going to pay their utility deposit, and we're going to pay their first 6 months rent. Good luck after that. And that's exactly what started in 2016 under programs called Rapid Rehousing. And we created a recycle program of homeless people because they were incapable of finding income between the time they were put in these places. And besides that, they changed the rules. They said that you can no longer force people to be clean and sober, and you can no longer force people to take programming as part of a housing solution. Again, by contrast, when you came to Mather, part of the lease agreement said, this is the program. If you don't do the program, you can't stay here. It's a clean and sober environment. We're going to do random drug testing 3 times a week. If you're not staying sober, we're going to send you back to alcohol and drug recovery. If you were to talk to the thousands of people that went through that program successfully, every one of them would tell you that the requirement to remain clean and sober saved their life. And the fact that our federal government has mandated now that we cannot require clean and sober environments, and we can no longer force people to take programming because they call it coercion, has literally taken all the teeth out of homeless services. And now we no longer have a program in Sacramento like Mather that's designed to exit people out of homelessness. So we're recycling current homeless people. We're getting a whole new group of homeless people that are coming in, particularly when the COVID money runs out. And we have no way to exit. So, as you might expect, that is a disaster waiting to happen. And if you could put up the next slide, we could look at some of the results. Oh, well, first off, this is the current homeless delivery system. And this is very difficult on service providers. It's even more difficult on the homeless population. If you are homeless today and you are not getting services but want services, you have to call 211 hotline, which is the homeless hotline. It's supposed to be answered by someone at Sacramento Steps Forward. It's their job to put you together with a navigator. VI SPDET is the name of the vulnerability test that they have to give all the homeless clients. So they'll send a navigator out to meet, they'll do the test, then they'll put you in their homeless management information system where you will be grouped with everybody else and ranked by your vulnerability, and then depending on where there's housing available, Sacramento Steps Forward will direct those people into those areas. And we have so many more homeless people than we have services available right now. It's hard to get someone to pick up 211. It's almost impossible to get a meeting with a navigator. It's very difficult to get into a service provider who actually provides the services that that individual needs, whether it's alcohol and drug recovery or mental health. And it really hasn't changed much since 2017. And that is because this is the way our government works. Most of the money comes from the federal government through the state, and it comes with conditions. And the Housing First conditions have not changed. So your local government can't take the money and then change the way that it's used. So they have to continue to conform to the Housing First guidelines. From their perspective, that money pays for the salaries and keeps the lights on at the county. They're not going to turn that money down, but it doesn't really do a whole lot of benefit to the clients. And there just seems to be a real disconnect between what we're responsible to do and what we're being paid to do. And it's something that I have been lobbying against for a while, and it's the reason I ended up writing a book. I didn't start writing a book. I started just writing my memoirs, but the more I wrote, the angrier I got. And became a book. Anyway, we can go to the next slide. So this is what the community lost at Mather. It was the only employment-based housing program dedicated to moving people out of homelessness forever. We served 185 single men and women and 60 families with 120 children every day, so we always had 400 people on our campus. We moved about 25 out every month and brought 25 new people in every month. From 98 to 2018, over 4,000 people completed the program. Again, I told you about the recidivism rate being less than 5%. And this next point is what I call unintended consequences. Especially when I first started at Mather the first couple of years, we got so much support from the community because of the work that was being done. They wanted to be a part of it. It was millions of dollars in-kind donations and volunteer help. Sleep Train supplied all of our mattresses and bedding for every unit for 10 years. Men's Warehouse supplied business suits for all of our male clients. We had a handful of different stores that supplied women's workwear. Les Schwab would bring out toys for the kids at Christmas. There was food providers that bring out turkeys. The churches used to come out regularly to do physical improvements to the property. The banks came out and taught credit repair, and they taught this program called Ready to Rent, which was about learning how to budget in your own home. Even the District of Attorney's Office created a special program to do criminal record reduction to help people go back to work. Today, Mather is being used as a shelter. Not a single one of those contributors is around anymore. So it's hard for me to determine what the total value that the community lost when those services went away and those businesses went away. And by the way, those businesses hired lots of people out of Mather. When VSP opened up in Folsom, VSP makes glasses. They hired 100 people out of our program in 18 months to man their manufacturing facility. I think about 65 of them are still working there as permanent employees. So every one of those contributors have gone, and there's no comprehensive programs left to exit people from homelessness. So we could do the next slide. So this is what we have. The homeless population in our region has more than quadrupled since 2014. The point in time count in 2014 was 2,500. I haven't seen it for this year, but they're estimating it's going to be 13,000, and I'm not surprised it's taking longer to get that number out this year. That is an incredible increase. And there's a lot of money that's being allocated to homeless issues going forward, but virtually none of it is targeted the way that it was targeted when we had that layered system, referral system of providers that ended up in a program that could exit people from homelessness. These are the programs that are being suggested and offered today are specific programs to target specific areas of problems like mental health and like alcohol and drug recovery, but there's no comprehensive plans to provide all those foundational materials that people need to exit homelessness. And that's really what we did at Mather. We put foundation back under people's lives. Nobody came with a bank account. Nobody came with a driver's license. They all left with a bank account and a driver's license. None of them had a high school diploma or a GED. Very few had any kind of vocational training whatsoever. Most of them had been struggling with alcohol and drugs. A lot of them had criminal records. I think it was around 85%. So we cleaned all that up, got them training, and then put them together with a business so they could get a job. And by the way, for people who have been homeless, employment changes their life. It's almost like a magic pill. They become a part of something greater. They get to contribute again, or maybe for the first time in their life, to something other than their own existence. It really changes people's lives. So there's new solutions being introduced today, and they're all over the board in scope and design. So the final slide that I have for you today is what now? Well, to this group, I would tell you we need lots of prayer. We also need to put pressure on political leaders, and I know there's some people in this room that are working on that. There's some new tools that are showing up on the funding side that may be available to do more of the kind of work that we did at Mather. I am currently working with some people in El Dorado County. Your county is trying to get organized today for homeless services. They haven't really had to worry about it, but all of a sudden there's 50 tents on Broadway and Placerville and other encampments that are showing up. So they need to figure out how to get organized. So we're working with them to try not to make some of the mistakes that were made in Sacramento County. We're also trying to work with Sacramento County and Sacramento City on reorganizing services to do better work. But if we got started today, it would take a decade to have significant impact. So there is a sense of urgency. I don't know if you guys know what harm reduction is, but harm reduction is an idea to support safe drug use. And this is what came with Housing First, was this harm reduction approach. We can't tell people to stop using, so we're going to help them be safe. We'll give them clean needles. We'll give them instructions on how to use. In some cities like New York, they have safe houses where people can go use illegal drugs under supervision. We'll teach them how to use Narcan, which saves people's lives when they overdose. People, until we get a handle on the alcohol and drug use, particularly the drug use that's going on in our country right now, because it is, the drugs that are in the market today are 5 times more powerful than they were when I entered the system in 2014. They're all laced with fentanyl, which kills. And it is a manufacturing chain that starts in China, goes to Mexico, and ends up in your schoolyards and in your city streets. And this harm reduction program is doing nothing but fueling the development of those drug chains, and it's ruining people's lives. I'm an advocate for the homeless. They are somebody's father, mother, brother, sister, aunt, or uncle, children, given the opportunity to participate in a rehabilitation program that has people that care and has tools, the results can be remarkable. And I had the same attitude about homeless people that most people have before I started working with them. And that was, seeing the people on the street holding up signs that says, we'll work for food, or need money, thinking that, well, just go get a job. And not really knowing what the backstory was on the people, or the barriers that they were trying to overcome. And then having the opportunity to see these transformations. And I wrote about several of them in my book that are just, they would blow your mind, what these people are contributing in our community today and where they started. So it's a population that needs a lot of help. I had fully expected to be out of this business by now, but I hope to continue to work with the people who care about it to continue to make a difference. So that's all I've got to say. Like I said, I think this remains God's work. It's Jesus' direction that we're supposed to do what we can to help the poor and disfranchised. That's the biggest population that I think we need to try to figure out how to help going forward.